Do it. Do it now. Come to the dark side of the AoS world. Let us talk about jargon.
Hello, everybody. It is your professor, Rocco, your boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. I don't know, this sweater makes me feel like the Emperor in all the Star Wars movies. I just want to be devious today. I want to be excited. I want to talk about something for this AoS video. I don't know if this is going to be a 101 or if this is going to be... I think it's going to be a 101. Obviously, when this comes out, you'll know if this is a general class or not. But people keep throwing out, to me, what are jargon terms. And jargon being like, it's a very specific term in a very specific field, either of work or study, or in this case, hobbying, which is what we're really studying, of Age of Sigmar. It's one of those in-words where, like, if you do it daily, you know what it means. And for competitive play, not everyone does this daily or weekly or monthly, for that matter. So I want to just talk about playing Age of Sigmar and the three terms floating above me right now on the chalkboard. I got a bit we're going to talk about today. Let's get right into it here with alpha striking versus alpha bunkering versus castles and what these mean for me. So, an alpha strike in a game of Age of Sigmar is you're gonna go for the throat. You have a very aggressive playstyle in which top of turn one, because you got a low enough drops or you set yourself up for when you have your turn one, you're gonna go pedal to the metal and send as much of your army as possible across the table to destroy your opponent. You're hoping to cripple them in all their dreams and aspirations. You don't necessarily care about scoring objectives so much as killing stuff and preventing your opponent from scoring. If this is done right, two things can happen. One, your opponent is nearly tabled and just does not have enough models or enough important pieces of their army to compete in a game of Age of Sigmar. It's just done. And if you get a double turn, or even if you just maintain turn priority, the game's over. You did it, pack it in, you're good. That's an alpha strike. The other thing that can happen if you do this correctly is your opponent is pinned in their deployment zone. This is really more what I like doing an alpha strike for, is if your opponent is stuck, and pinned, again, could be another kind of jargon term, where they're just stuck in a place. They're just stuck in place. But if they're in their deployment zone, more likely than not, in most of these battle plans and scenarios you will be playing, they will have one home objective, or maybe a couple, but they're just stuck there. They cannot physically move past your models and your army to score the things that are in no man's land between you or your own home objective. They cannot move away. They have to defend their stuff. They are stuck on their half or a third or quarter of the table, however the deployments are set up, and they cannot move. Sometimes that is even more successful than crippling them by destroying key units or just numbers, thinning out their ranks. Alpha striking is very hard to do. In the current day and age of Age of Sigmar, the armies that are most likely able to do this are honestly destruction, or anyone with like a run and charge ability. Like if you're gonna take Kragnos, that can give out a 3d6 charge, that opens up like Ogre Maw tribes, that opens up a lot of squigs with very fast movement already, and the ability to do mortal wounds and fly as they bounce along. Trog herds with a Kragnos, or just straight up Iron Jaws and Orcs that have, or armies that have teleporting shenanigans or extra pile-in shenanigans, like, say, Daughters of Cain, if you're going to be running the Sisters of Slaughter. If you have the ability to teleport your stuff to maybe get in better position to shoot, that could be considered an alpha strike. a ranged onslaught. If you are running like Techless and a bunch of Sentinels and Lumineth Realm Lords, your Alpha Strike is equal parts the magic from Techless to reach out and do damage, and maybe put on certain debuffing spells while also shooting the heck out of whatever you can with your Sentinels, whether you brought 20 or 40 or whatever you did. Those are what you do for an Alpha Strike. You either physically kill enough stuff, or what I personally like better, pin your opponent in place so that they cannot move around to score or kill your important things. Now, an Alpha Bunker, all right, this is when you, again, deliberately take first turn and you move into a more defensible position. Now, sometimes this could be up and around an objective where you move very durable troops up, not even necessarily within range to be charged, but you can like have board presence in the middle of the board. You can expand your power. You circle around, maybe in this case, the Galatian champions here, where you need them to score several battle tactics, and your thing is keeping more alive than your opponent if you did that grand strategy. So setting up your game by moving into the middle of the board to establish field presence while and scoring objectives. Just be like, yeah, I'm pushing myself out from my deployment zone. I'm not trying to hurt my opponent yet. I want them to come to me, and I'm going to have all my buffs up. All my heroes will be protected. We've got a huge shield wall of dwarves or Phoenix Guard with their 4-up armor save and 4-up ward save. I've got defensive eels. I've got brutes lined up. I've got waves upon waves of skeletons set up. I've got all my Night Haunt moved in, up and around. Whatever the case may be, you go and you take a defensive position to make your stand. You dictate the terms of the engagement that's going to happen between the two armies, and tell your opponent, hey, try to move me. Come at me, bro. And if they try to Alpha Strike, they will. If you, again, take the initiative and set up a better defensive thing, sometimes what you do is even, you send like a small screen to capture just enough objectives to score 1, score 2, score more. So your home objective and one of the middle ones, because your opponent should be only on one home objective. Usually. Some games have more home objectives, but follow me here. You take the bare minimum amount of objectives on the table to score maximum score, and the rest of your army just slightly moves back. Just a little bit. And you take that defensive position and that board presence and be like, okay, now I can react to whatever my opponent does. If they get the double turn, it's going to be wasted because they couldn't reach my important stuff anyway. And I'm okay with that. And then we get to castles. A castle in Age of Sigmar is like my Deepkin I jokingly call my floating castle off of that, what was it, Howl's flying castle, floating I don't watch anime. Someone get in the comments and tell me what thing I'm talking about. It's the one with the like living flame that eats stuff while they cook. I've seen the video a bajillion times. I watched it as a kid. I don't remember what it is. Probably Howl's moving castle. But how this works is you have a main unit that gives out buffs to the rest of your army. Like some kind of like to hit aura or +1 to save aura, whatever it is, to make your army more durable. For my army, I'm going to use my Nautilar army as an example, where my turtle, Shelly Baby Girl, the Leviathan, she gives out a huge aura of +1 to save and +1 to hit for my Namarti troops. That's the Reavers with the bows and the Thralls with the melee weapons. You have to be wholly within, the enemy unit has to be wholly within the aura of the turtle order for them to get the buff, because they like killing things that are close to Shelly to protect her. So in order for that to work, I give her the mount trait of the larger aura, while also being pretty aggressive in how I move her. That being said, it's a castle because the units that need to be near enough to the turtle to get the auras to do all the stuff need to stay near her. So she's like the central point for me, and flanking her with screens and with the actual damage dealing units of my army. And again, screens are things that are units that are very cheap that I could throw away and not worry about it. They take up space, they deny my opponent easy avenues coming in and out of my army. And then I have my hammer units, my aggressive units that do damage, as we've remember from previous videos. Where then they're set up around the turtle in order to do different buffs. I'll also have my Achillean King, who will be near the turtle to try to give it buffs when the time comes, to say, do the once per game, always strikes first in my charge phase early, instead of battle round 3 when it normally happens for Deepkin. You know, I have ways to buff my army, and they all need to stay near each other's orbit to get the buffs. So that's a castle. I'm literally building like almost like a mobile defensive platform that'll just plop down. People can try to storm the castle all they want. It's going to be tough because I'm going to have shooting. You know, I'm set it up so that, like, if you charge my Reavers, they'll get +1 to hit for shooting someone that's within 9 inches of them. That's a model by model basis, too, for the target. And if you're charging them, obviously, you're all within 9 inches. You're within half an inch of my unit. But then they're also going to be close enough to the turtle to get another +1 to hit, because you're going to be wholly within the turtle's aura, right? Now, Unleash Hell gives me -1 to shoot. So I have +2 to shoot and a -1 to shoot. That's going to be a net +1 for me to shoot. And they already shoot on 3s. They already hit on 3s. So I'll be doing my Unleash Hell on 2s. It is a devastating combo when this all works out. And you'll see other armies doing this kind of a thing, where, like, say you have a hero or a buffing piece, like the old Chaos War Shrine. I don't know if the new one still does it, but it gives out an aura of a 6-up ward save. In Cities of Sigmar currently, the Frostheart Phoenix gives out an aura to enemy units of -1 to wound in combat if they try to attack your stuff that's, you know, within, if the enemy units are within the aura. And that shrinks as the bird gets hurt. But also, the Phoenix, the Anointed on Phoenix, can issue a command ability to give another aura of rerolling wounds for Phoenix Guard units, that is Phoenix Temple units. That's the bird, and that is the Phoenix Guard themselves with the halberds on the ground. And also it gives out an aura of battle shock immunity to those Phoenix Guard on the ground. So they will want to be, and it's wholly within 12 for those bigger auras. And then, like I said, the -1 to be wounded, it might be 9, it might be 12, but it goes down, it shrinks as the bird gets hurt, and I'm used to my bird always being hurt, so I don't remember the actual number off the top of my head. It's one of those things, I have my book out, and I'm always holding, like, I have the page dog-eared, so I can look and see how big it actually is. But long story short, my Phoenix Temple all kind of cluster together to make sure they receive all these buffs and hand out all of these debuffs. And again, that's very important. That's the castle. That's the idea. Can you move your castle up like an alpha bunker? Sure. But again, I'm not trying to take a certain board position with it. It's just, if it's a castle, that's just how we move together as a unit, in my mind, when we do this. If it's an alpha bunker, again, I'm going more for board position one way or another. If it's a castle, that's generally just how I'm deploying. You know, it's just what I do. I don't spread out. I bunch up and form this castle, and then I move accordingly. And alpha striking and alpha bunkering are what you do when the game starts. What is your first go? And to add to this, beta striking, which is generally what I do, is just another way of saying playing reactionary, where I want to see what my opponent does, make them make mistakes with however I've deployed or moved my units, and then take advantage of it. I am not trying to force the tempo of the game. I'm not trying to force myself onto my opponent. I'm trying to see what they want to do. They're the lead in this dance that we're doing here in this game for the next 3 hours. They lead, I follow. When they mess up, it gives me an opportunity to exploit, which is why, personally, I am not the hugest fan of trying to alpha strike stuff, because I have played against it so much and I exploit it so much that I know how hard it is to pull off correctly. Because when you do it right, you cripple your opponent. I've played against Iron Jaws where, all that I had left was an Eidolon of the Storm and my Leviathan. That was it. Maybe like a hero, a foot hero. Everything else was gone. But I didn't mind, because then my turtle and the aspect of the storm killed everything. Because I got to play reactionary, and then I won a turn priority, and then I just kept going and mowing down my opponent. And I've had times where I've won games off of just 2 models. And I've had times where I've lost horribly because of it. But more of playing reactionary than being aggressive with the alpha striking. But, I also, again, when I deploy, I try to make it so that I know that I'm playing reactionary when I walk up to a table. If I'm at a tournament, my opponent does not know my playstyle. They don't necessarily know my army. They might know what faction it is, but I like playing things that aren't necessarily popular, and I will go over and explain to my opponents. Heck, I think I've even done videos where I've talked about my army lists, and I'm like, yeah, no, here's the video. You can watch it. Here's my printout of my sheet. And they may be familiar with my army. Again, I have had mirror matches in tournaments where we brought almost identical lists. They knew what I was doing, or what I was capable of, I should say. They knew what I was capable of with the army. There were no secrets. But how I played it and what I did specifically, my opponent doesn't know. There's just so many Age of Sigmar players. You'll never really know. Even when you run into some of the big names on the internet, of like if whoever wins LVO, or whoever tough crowd that, take your pick. The Basement Wargamers are huge too. We've got all these clubs, and you look at all the stuff on the ITC of everything, and you hear all these names in England and Australia and Canada, the US, all throughout Europe, even in Central and South America now, Eastern Europe, the Asia, the whole world. You'll hear names, and you'll hear things, and you'll see their lists online. But unless you go and play that person specifically, you have no real idea what they're going to do with their army throughout the game. You can guess. Hopefully they're playing to the objectives on the battle plan. But if they're like, oh yeah, man, I have an alpha strike army, this is what this is. I have a really defensive army. I'm going to alpha bunker turn 1 and then just have you come at me because I play Nurgle. Oh, wow, that's just a whole circus of a castle over there of everyone jumping all over each other, huh? Well, now you know what those mean, so you don't get confused. And with that, thank you for coming to class today. If you have any questions that you want answered, drop them in the comments below. Leave a like if you like the video, and don't forget to subscribe, too. We actually have a lot of viewers that aren't subscribers but keep coming back. It's free to subscribe and it helps out the channel. Especially if you like what we're doing. Give us a little motivation. And thank you for coming to class today. As I like to say at the end of all of our videos, class dismissed. Bye.